Sadie Hainsworth.
Hey.
Your first podcast. How you feeling?
I'm excited.
Yeah. What do you think of our conversation with Ram?
It was really good. He's a really cool guy. He's very genuine and honest, and it's just really cool to hear his story.
Yeah, it is. And I think the listeners today will be able to hear, if they didn't get a chance to hear him in students or in our community recovery group, they're going to hear somebody authentic. And here's the thing about Ram, and I think maybe you caught this, and I want to hear your thoughts as this intro. But you hear artist, tattoo artist, you see this guy all tatted up. Guy knows the Bible.
He does.
And if you outward appearance, you're like, all right, who's this guy? This guy's all tatted up. He's telling all these stories about his past, his addiction. And then all of a sudden he starts quoting scripture like, dang, this guy knows scripture. And did you see that?
Absolutely. It definitely caught me off guard, but it was awesome. It gave me a heart check for sure.
So it caught me off guard as well. Kind of like me saying to you, I'm a Grizzly fan and you're not. How did that make you feel? That was a heart stopper, wasn't it? When I said, go Northside?
It was.
You know, how'd you feel? I mean, down deep. I know I'm no longer number one in your heart, but
you're not. But we can move past this. We can.
There's grace.
There's grace.
We heard about grace. Well, Sadie, those of you listening, Sadie is stepping in today to be co-host of our 61st Minute podcast. And you are listening to the 61st Minute podcast, a podcast of Community Bible. And this is a special edition. We are outside of season 1. We're not into season 2 yet, but we felt it was important for you to hear from a guest speaker that was in town. His name is Ram Lee. He's from Traverse City, Michigan. One of the most beautiful places in the world. And I am excited, Sadie and I, to share our podcast with you. So enjoy. Sadie, my co-host for the day. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Man, this is your first time on the mic in the podcast room. How do you feel?
I feel a little nervous, but I'm excited.
All right. Well, first of all, the people that are going to hear you know you. I mean, they've seen you. You may not know them, but they know you. So this is kind of cool because you are now on our 61st Minute podcast for the very first time. Kind of join us in. This is Sadie Hainsworth. Get it up. Okay, that's enough. And so Sadie is here, going to help me co-host today because we have a good friend of mine. His name's Ram Lee. He is from Traverse City, Michigan. He is a tattoo artist. He is a paint artist. He's an artist that paints realism. I've seen some of his work, outdoor scenes, winter, summer, fall, all of that, fish, animals. Crazy, very talented man, and now a speaker, public speaker, traveling around. One day he'll be an author. He'll write, another book of the Bible. I'm just kidding. So, Sadie, you got a chance to hear him last night. Overall impression, what'd you think? No pressure that he's sitting right next to you.
I absolutely loved it. I mean, when you come into students and you have a guest speaker talking, sometimes it can be really difficult just to dive deep into the word and really get them to pay attention and really get them to just hear what they have to say. But I know one thing that my girls took away was just how genuine and just raw emotion that they felt. And it was really cool getting to hear a story that may have not seemed picture perfect, but got him to be where he is today. And he's just so motivational and so encouraging. So I loved that. And I know my girls loved that too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
There's your feedback. Ram, how does that feel?
It feels good. It's always good to get positive and negative feedback. So I'm just trying to be good at this.
Ram, you had an opportunity to speak to our community recovery group on Tuesday night and then last night. And I told you afterward, if you have a lane or a sweet spot, I felt like with students, you just seem so natural. Why teenagers? Why do you feel so comfortable speaking to that age group?
Maybe because I tattoo so many younger folks. I'm 60 now, so I have to be careful. It's a student ministry, but I'm 60, so everyone's like, hey, kid, what's up? And it's not a knock on them, but I really try to watch that. I think personally, because I never want to be the get off my land guy, and I love the fact that I really believe that this generation can be the next great generation, like the World War II generation. And, maybe people think that's weird comparing that, but there's a movement right now, a big Christian movement in our youth. We saw it. I'm going to bring up my Buckeyes, Ohio State, but the baptisms that were happening on campus there, the motivation from the athletes, the student athletes. I believe right now the fastest growing dynamic is 18 to 29-year-old men. And that's right in my wheelhouse because I grew up so rough and I had good mentors and I had good people in my life. But if I can give back and, like one of the things I thought about speaking last night was my story is my story. Don't feel like you got to have this crazy violent story to have a story. You could have been born a millionaire and have an amazing story and still share Jesus.
Absolutely.
So,
and talking about the Ohio State, that was a big deal because they were baptizing people on campus and they were spreading the word. You see this even University of Auburn basketball team at the end of the season, they said it's just about the Lord. And I think if you look back at where this all originated, and Sadie, you'll remember this, I think it was just a year ago, there was this university, was it Asbury? In Nashville area? Tennessee.
Kentucky.
It was in Kentucky. And the revival was happening. And really it was and all churches were trying to jump onto that movement. And I think that kind of spirit, do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
What was significant for you, Sadie, when you heard that going on? Was that an excitement like, I want to go see that? Did you go see that? Or did you know people that were there kind of deal?
No, but I saw a lot of videos, and I think for me, it was just really cool because sometimes we think that since we're so young that we can't have an impact and we can't be in these incredible stories that we're seeing on the news or just on social media in general. So it was really cool to see kids my age really on fire for God and really starting to make a movement and getting adults excited because sometimes we forget that we are the next generation and we are going to be the next leaders and the next generation leading the younger kids to Christ. So it was just really cool to see.
And really, Ram, I think, in light of what we've experienced, I mean, from the school and the videos were powerful. I remember our 70-year-old pastor when I was working at my former church. He's like, "We've got to tap into this movement because we'll miss it." And it was all spurred by young kids, young adults, from teenagers, from high school up through late 20s, just saying, "There's got to be more."
Yep.
Here you are speaking in Fort Smith, Arkansas, far from home, and you are having an impact in the lives of young people. What did you sense their response to you as you were speaking last night?
I think the cool thing was I think I had him engaged, and I don't ever want to assume that. I do remember seeing one kid look like he was kind of bored, so I walked over that way and made sure I made eye contact and talked to him directly. And not in a negative way, but in a, hey man, I'm right here, bro, and just listen,
Freshman.
Yeah, exactly.
Freshman.
But I know like some of the stories I shared, I could see like they were like physically involved, like emotionally involved. And that's good. I with students, I don't want to be like the boring guy. And I was pretty serious last night because I've had a lot of serious things happening in my life in the last month. And so this culmination of coming to Fort Smith, first of all, I didn't think I'd make it. Too many things have happened. That would have been twice I had to cancel, and that would have ruined our friendship too.
Yes, it would have.
But anyways, I got here, right? And I do want to be clear when I say I got here. I was coming. Like I don't want to sound silly, but I grew up fighting, and I am not comparing myself to be able to fight the devil because he'll whoop my butt. But it was like, no, dude, you're not winning. And so I came here. And so I had to put pressure on myself. Like when I spoke to the recovery group, I've never done that. So that was new to me and different. And it was a lot harder speaking. And then when I spoke to the student ministry, I just felt like I was in my wheelhouse. But I was probably more serious than I normally am because I felt that there was such a battle going on spiritually in me that I had to get this right.
Here's what I'll tell you.
A lot of pressure on myself.
Yeah, but here's what I'll tell you about you, Ram, what I know. First of all, the statement is that I just heard recently, you never want to fight the devil in the dark.
Nope.
So that means you can't fight him alone. You've got to be in the light, which means you surround yourself with people. You didn't make any decision just as a whim or just like instant. You called me. We even talked about the perspective of, if I said to you, if you're not at peace, do not come.
Yeah.
And you ruminated on that all night until your wife gave you that peace by saying, you need to be in Arkansas, dummy,
Yes.
kind of thing.
And that's how she said it, man.
Yeah,
She's like, you know, you need to be where you
and
need to be.
I know December. That's exactly how she said it, and that's just. I mean, that's a great way of saying you need to go because this is you live in the light. Don't live in the dark. Don't fight the devil in the darkness. You got the light going, and you did, and God used you in an incredible way. You made a statement last night. And I want you to expound on it a little bit. The statement I thought was so powerful. You made it both nights. God has more grace than you have sin.
Yep.
Let me ask Sadie first how that touched her, and then I want you to follow up by why do you think that's so important? So, what did you feel about that, Sadie?
I absolutely loved it. That's actually what took most of our small group time. We were talking about it because it's so easy, especially as high school girls. Those are my small group girls. We just focus a lot on the mistakes we make. And when we make those mistakes, we automatically put up a barrier between us and God. And it was just really cool to hear someone in your story because you've gone through so much and you've seen so much just to be able to tell us like, hey, I know like this is what's happened. There's been a lot that's gone on, but no matter what, God is still bigger and he still loves and he's going to continue to love no matter how many mistakes you make. He's always going to be there waiting for you. So it was just really cool to hear because as we grow up, it's really easy to get harder on ourselves and to think that everybody else is looking down on us. And so it was just really awesome to hear from someone that I honestly think everyone that walked out of that room can look up to.
I said that because it took me till I was 55 years old to understand grace. And I remember walking into my buddy Brian's office. He's a pastor, and we had planted a church and a brewery like I talked about last night. And I walked in there and I said, I finally understand grace. He goes, oh, you do? And I go, yeah, it took me 55 years. And I don't know if I fully understand it, but what I do understand is I can't move forward and do God's will if I'm focused on all the dumb crap I've done my whole life. That's why, like, when I talked last night, I talked about, I met my future wife and we moved to Arizona and we had a baby out of wedlock. And, when my son was, 3 weeks from 1 year old at our wedding and, in a Christian circle, that's not good. And I like talking in Christian circles because I'm not always the polished guy that they want to hear from. But I think that we need to hear that it's okay. I don't recommend doing it. I would definitely want to do God's will because, as I'm not doing his will, I'm hitting guardrails in the ditches, but then he's got me right back on the path to where, like I said last night, here I am, and I'm in Fort Smith. I'm here for a reason. He's the ultimate chess player. And so the grace it's unlimitless from him. That doesn't mean, too, I want to make sure I stress this, you don't get to keep sinning and be a heathen. Just know that you have his grace and then show his grace. Paul is one of my, obviously everybody knows Paul. Well, I shouldn't say everybody knows Paul, but you should know Paul. He wrote half the New Testament, right? He expounds on grace so much, right? It's grace, no works. But then James talks about faith without works is dead. And that can get confusing because you think you have to do something. And what James is talking about is faith, grace, having all that, but then showing it. And not to earn your way to heaven, but to just let them know what Jesus has done in your life.
It's a response.
Important. Yes.
Out of your faith and understanding grace, your response is that you're going to serve the Lord.
Yes.
It's just why wouldn't I? God, you've given me so much. Of course I want to serve you. So it's not I have to do this to get that, but it's because I received this that I want to do that. And that's what I think James is teaching there. But I think I love, Rand, what you talk about because Paul is very clear that, hey, since we have grace, it gives us the freedom to go sin more. No.
Nope.
Because we have the grace, we don't have to live in the shame and the guilt, and we don't have to keep going back and have to deal with this all over again. That we can live in freedom knowing we're not bound by this stuff. This stuff's not going to anchor us into our past. We're not held captive by this, that we're free to now build that relationship with God because of that. And I think that you conveyed that so well last night, man. It was well done. And Sadie, when you looked across the room, you're working with students and you're aware of what's happening in that room. It was quiet.
It was.
And not always is it quiet.
It is not.
And I've spoken and it isn't quiet. So nice job. First of all, you had that.
Maybe because I look mean. I don't know.
Then that's what I wanted to ask Sadie. Sadie, as we talk about impact in a young person's life, what do you think it was that for Ram, he was able to hold them captive? What was it about his story that students were like, this dude is real and I need to hear this?
I think it's so easy to go into a room full of high schoolers. I mean, the youngest grade that we have in there is 8th grade, and not necessarily talk down, but just kind of suppress the story a little bit and not make it as raw as it is. And so I feel like you went into last night and you were just laying it all out there, and you weren't making the story any less than what it actually was. And so I feel like, and I know because they've told me, they really appreciated just you going in there, and instead of talking to the person who maybe is just getting to know Jesus, you were talking to every single one of them like they had been following Jesus their entire life. Right. And they knew exactly who he was, and they had a super deep personal relationship with him. And so I know that they appreciated that because they've been wanting that for so long. And it wasn't even just the kids. I mean, I left last night, and one of my best friends, she's a 6th grade small group leader. And we drove around for an hour and a half last night and just talked about what you were talking about and how much an impact it made on us. So I think not only did you have the students engaged, but you had every single leader engaged, which is just really hard to do sometimes. But I don't know, you did a really good job. And so I think we all took a lot away from it.
You know, Ram, one of the things, and Sadie knows this too, I think what happens, there's an expectation that these speakers that are going to come in are polished professionals, and they're just it's going to be like every other speaker. What makes your ability to talk to people, no matter what age, is the authenticity and the realism of, this is who I am. You don't come in trying to emulate other speakers, other public speakers. You're not trying to come in to be the next, Mark Driscoll or next John Piper or Stephen Furtick. You're Ram Lee, and and your story is the one that God has been writing with you amidst the pain, the hurt, the setbacks, all of that journey. And you present it in such a way that you had an impact in the lives of adults who struggled with addiction and hang-ups and hold-ups, and then had the same impact in the lives of young people who are still discovering who they are and what they want to do in their life.
Yep.
And so what does that mean for you when you look at your future? As we kind of wrap up, when we look at your future of public speaking, I've been on this journey since day one with you to help you become a guy out there telling your story. How does that affect you? What's the impression that you walk out of here with after 2 days of spending time at Community Bible?
I walk out of here with the fact that God is awesome, because, I mean, when I pulled into your church driveway Tuesday morning, and I'd left Springfield, Missouri, about a 3-hour drive or so, and I pull in the parking lot, and on Tuesday my wife was supposed to have a biopsy, and for cancer, breast cancer, and we were kind of tripping a little bit. And I pull in the parking lot, and I've been praying that there's nothing. My prayer was straight, like, God, I'm a very blunt guy, and it's like, hey, I don't want to sugarcoat this. I don't want my wife to have a mass. I want nothing. My son calls me when I pull in the parking lot. I put it in park. I grabbed I hit the button, and he's like, hey, man, mom's mammogram and ultrasound this morning. They're not even doing a biopsy. There's no mass. I broke down crying in my truck, because it's like, that's an answered prayer. And I talk about this with other groups sometimes, but God gives us nuggets sometimes. You don't always know that, I had an old timer tell me once years ago that you throw a pebble in the water, you don't know where the ripple goes. So when I speak to people, I don't know who's getting it and who's not getting it. I love the feedback. So, when you get that little nugget, like my nugget for this, what I take from my Fort Smith trip is I did exactly what God wanted me to do. And I'm not going to say he rewarded me by my wife not having cancer, because my wife easily could have had cancer, and I know she'd have been okay. You know what I mean? But just that like, you prayed and I answered. Everyone wants God's prayers on their time. I actually got one on my time. That's never happened, right? It's crazy. So that was awesome. And then the other thing I told December this morning. Every time I speak somewhere, there always seems to be one or two people. I don't want to sound stupid, but I almost think they're angels. And Sharon, all right?
Sharon Lowry. From here, Sharon Lowry.
Sharon, it will stick with me. I'm just going to let you guys know that. And I hope she hears this.
She will.
Yep.
Trust me, she will.
She's going to stick with me because she was
Shout
there.
out to Sharon. She'll be listening.
She was there for me Tuesday night, and she was there yesterday, and talk about how Tuesday night, how they prayed for my wife. And just, like, she gave me a calm that actually helped me last night. I was just like, and then I would see her sitting there, with this amongst the students. And I'm just like, I think that, God is so faithful. He's got me. And it gets strengthened every time I do these kind of journeys.
Yeah, I truly believe so. Ram, first of all, we're so thankful and grateful that you could make it and that God opened up the door and the opportunity. And I love how he used your wife to just say, hey, dummy, time to go to Arkansas. And I appreciate our friendship. You know, we're going on 20 years and it's real. Yep. It's always been. We've been there for each other thick and thin. We always will be. And so appreciate your time here with us today in our podcast and what message will be conveyed even through this platform. You'll have an impact, and appreciate you. This is 61st Minute Podcast. Thanks for listening.